Welcome back. In this video I'll complete the first mod in this build. Just before I do that, I've had the battery disconnected for about 3 weeks because I'm trying to clear an airbag light because I had a wire disconnected, and I know already it's not going to work because the radio still remembers the station, so I'll deal with that another time. It's just a matter of leaving the battery disconnected until the backup memory finally dies off. So anyway, the first mod I want to do is on the exhaust system because to be honest it doesn't sound that crash hot. So I'll just start it up here and you can have a listen. So there you have it. It's not crash hot, but I'm sure I can make it sound a bit better than that. So what I plan to do is remove this entire system and build something myself, custom. And you can see this muffler is absolutely enormous. It's about half the size of the engine. It's got a built-in catalytic converter, and the actual headers is pretty poorly made if you ask me. It's very restrictive. So here's a muffler I plan to use. It's actually the same one I used on my drift trike, and it's just off of a motorbike, 2-inch, and it's way smaller and way lighter, so who knows, we'll see what happens. I bought a number of mandrel bends and I'll make a custom manifold out of that. So there's the system out, and this is what it sounds like. Doesn't sound too good, I don't know, I'm just interested to see what that sounded like. But anyway, I'll get the bends and just first lay them out and try to figure out how I'm going to do this. And I decide that what I want to do is just cut the original headers away and keep the flange and reuse that flange. So I do exactly that, remove the flange, the rest of it will be going in the bin, or I might make some metal art at some point. And once I do that, then I grind those welds down flat, clean them up. And when Mercedes built this, it was only welded on one side, so having it ground flat, there's a bit of pipe or tube still left in there, and it just knock it out real easy. Now I'm going to use 35mm tube, which is a slightly bigger, but it's a good match to the ports. And I'm just going to open this up by it's only probably 0.5 millimeter, not much at all. So a quick cleanup, quick file, and those tubes fit in there really nicely. I do that to all three, and there's really not much room at all. And unlike Mercedes, I want to be able to remove this exhaust without taking the entire engine out. So I cut the three, this is the last one, I put it back in, and then I start it again just to see, what does it sound like. So there's the three tubes in. Obviously I need to get the layout right, but here's what they look like. Well, that sounds a little bit better. The next challenge is laying these pipes out so I can get a three-way merge, and there isn't much room at all, and I just mess about with this and I come up with something like this, and I want to see firstly, is it going to fit back in the engine. So I'll cut this tube off. You can see they're not lined up properly, but first thing I want to do is just see it's roughly in the right paddock type of thing, but is it going to clear everything? So I put it on the engine. I can see that tube on the far right. There's a little bit of room where I can maybe put that behind the other two, and that's exactly what I do here. I cut it off, rework it, and now you can see they're turning into a nice set of extractors, and that merge is coming along much more what I was hoping for.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that sounded a bit better. I even got a few flames out that time. Anyway, onto the merge. So what I'm going to do is merge the three 35mm pipes into one 50mm. And to do this, I just calculate out the circumference of the 50mm, which is 157 millimeters. The circumference of the 35mm is 110, and that's simply pi times the diameter, and pi is 3.142. And from this, I work out that I need to cut away probably about half, close enough to half of each of the 35mm tubes. So I start doing that, And just before I do, here's what it looks like. And if I cut half of those three 35mm pipes, they should fit up and achieve the diameter of one 2-inch tube, or 50mm. So there's the first one. I haven't cut it quite half because I just want to do a little bit at a time to get it right, because I haven't made a 3-to-1 merge before. And give it a quick clean up. And once I do all three, it looks like this, and it's starting to look pretty good. The 3 tubes actually merge really well internally after TIG weld them up. Once I get that far, I start now to weld the tubes themselves up, because once they're all in place, it's literally impossible to get all the way around these tubes. So, bit at a time, I fully weld the tubes, and then I'm at a point of putting them back on the manifold, making sure they all line up, and then starting to fully weld them together. So with the tubes welded, I'll put them in the manifold now, and just make sure they haven't moved around too much. And I did put several tacks on it to hope they'd stay in the same spot. And you can see here with them welded, when I get this together, they actually fitted up really nicely. So with that done, I tack them together a bit more, and then these 2 tubes are not going to move. And while I've got just 2 tubes on, I actually fully weld that end, and I then put the 3rd tube back in place. So there's a 3rd one going in. You can see inside there, worked out really well. Now I had a really nice fit on these flanges, so I've decided I'm just going to fully weld it from the inside, which I'm doing there, and it came up really good. Once that's all welded, I then cut this down to be more of a straighter edge, and then I'm at a point where I can finish the TIG welding inside that tube. Now to get that to be completely round, I get in the lathe, I make up a bit of a taper just with this bit of aluminium I had laying around, and then what I do, heat that tube up that is being welded now, get it red hot, and then with it hot I simply hammer in that tapered tube, and I've machined it so it's exactly going to be the right diameter, and I just tap it in there, and being mild steel, it actually bends quite easily. So a bit of panel beating, and there you have it, nice round tube. Now to finish welding on the inside here, I've got that TIG tip sticking out a long way. Now you can't normally TIG like that, but if you see in the background there, I've purged this pipe internally to create that inert gas. So I do that, bit of a die grinder in there to clean up the weld, and that's the merge done. It come up awesome. With it all welded, again just see if it fits, and it clears, and it's the engine mounts movement, there's enough movement there, and then all we've got to do now is put a couple more bends on and figure out where I'm going to put that muffler. So there's a 180 bend, I weld that on, as you can see here, and it's starting to really take shape. Put it back in the car, and this is what it sounds like. Well, there's the pipe welded, and that is basically pretty much finished now, and the last thing I've got to do is just put the muffler on, which I'm doing here, and then what I need to do is fit the oxygen sensors. So there's the finished product, fits in the car complete like that. I don't even need to take the muffler off, which is awesome. Now on a smart car there's 2 oxygen sensors, and you'll see those in a moment, but here it is. I'll just show you how it fits in. I don't need the muffler off, as I said. Fits in nice. Now I'm not sure about having that drop down like that, because it sort of sits underneath the bumper, but I'll probably modify that angle. And there you go, actually worked out pretty good. So as I said, I need to get the oxygen sensors out, so here they are. There's two. This is the one that's in the catalytic converter. Doesn't actually do anything other than create an alarm to sense that the catalytic converter is not working. And the other one there is to measure the oxygen coming out of the engine and adjust the fuel mixture. Now you might be wondering, how am I going to do this without a catalytic converter? So what I've done, I've purchased a little fitting here which essentially contains a mini catalytic converter, and that's a pretty awesome thing. So we'll see if it works. But what you do is you basically put your bung in, screw that mini catalytic converter into the bung, and then screw the oxygen sensor into that unit, and it should trick the ECU to thinking that the catalytic converter is still there and working well. And we'll see how that goes. So as I said, the first oxygen sensor here is right after the engine. This is measuring oxygen, and it's sending the signal back to the ECU to adjust the fuel mixture to suit. So just on this mini catalytic converter, I put a bit of super strength Loctite because I just don't want that to vibrate loose. And the last thing I do is just cut the holes in the manifold. Now this one here is on one of the cylinders, and this is where I'm going to put the main oxygen sensor. I've bought a bung, it's M18 times 1.5 mil pitch. TIG that in, and you know, those, it's pretty simple weld to do actually. So I weld them all up, give it a clean up, and I screw both of those oxygen sensors in, and I'll put it on the car, and then in a minute you can see what it looks like and what it sounds like, and we'll go for the first ride. Well, I think that sounds a lot better than stock, but in the next video I might tidy up the muffler angle a bit and get on to the next mod, which will probably be adding a tow bar at this point. Stay tuned.